It's just some things, they are just hard to explain. And you know, this is me and jazz, and I'm sure there are people like that about classical music or alternative music or any other kind of music. That's why they like the music. But it's just, with me, it just happens to be jazz. It just does it for me, yeah. I grew up at 651 West 5th Street in a building that was called the Tremont Flats. And we lived right next door to Jackson School, right next door, just right out the window. But I went to Holy Trinity School, which was next door to Jackson School, because legend has it that my mother, who died when I was 2 years old, that almost her dying words were, "Don't send that boy to Jackson School."
Everybody say amen. Say it again.
My earliest memories actually come from a storefront church. And there was one in particular called the Bible Way Church of God in Christ. And the pastor was a man named Little Abraham. They would have this music and this rhythmic chant going on, call and response. And somebody would be playing the tambourine and it'd be a bass drum or whatever. And he would say, "What do you say about Jesus?" And his small congregation would say, "He's all right." And it was just incredible. I mean, it was just this rhythmic thing. So that caught my attention. The other thing that I was lucky to have was that we were approximately 2 blocks from the Cotton Club. And the Cotton Club was a famous venue for music. Now, I was too young to get in there, but if I went up to the door, I could hear the band. So occasionally I would do that. And then up 5th Street, there were a couple of clubs, bars, whatever you want to call them, that had live music. So I could stand outside and hear the musicians play. As things progressed and I got my first job, I got my first record player that I bought from Steinberg's on Walnut Street. And my very first record that I got was by Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, and it has the famous jazz tune, Moaning. And what was really neat was that it was a stereo, and it was call and response, so you would hear, you know, da 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 on the, and it was like, wow, look at that, listen to that. Well, I had aspirations to be a drummer. I wanted to be a drummer. And Art Blakey to me was the drummer. And I bugged my dad about getting me some drums. So one day my dad shows up at our 3-room apartment on 5th Street, which was very, very small, let me tell you, with this drum set. He had this huge drum. It was the ugliest drum set you've ever seen in your life because it was yellow and black. It was just terrible, but I loved it because it was my own drum set, you know, but it was hard to play because, first of all, it took up so much room. So eventually, through the good graces of the maintenance guy at Holy Trinity, he let me set the drums up in one of the old classrooms so I could practice there. Once I got out of grade school and doing my 8th grade at St. Henry, the nun had convinced me that I should become a priest. My father enrolled me in Sacred Heart Seminary. I also had taken my drums to the seminary with me. So I was a drummer for the band there, right? I would sneak down to the laundry room. They had a separate building because it was a radio down there. So I would sneak down there periodically and turn on WNOP. WNOP, Newport.
Stay tuned to WNOP, Newport, Kentucky.
It's just something about that music that it gets up here. It gets up here in your head.
My mother, when I told her I got a call from Cincinnati, my mother said, "Cincinnati? What is Cincinnati?" You have to believe that people like in New York feel this way about Cincinnati. You know, I imagine it's changed a little bit now, but they feel as if Cincinnati was a primitive place, and it was to a certain degree. In well, I'm talking about the 1950s, and I went. My mother said, "Do they have sidewalks down there?" And my father said, "They have running water." So I said, "I don't know, really. I didn't know." And anyway, I got on a Greyhound bus with my drums, my old beat up drums I had. I came down to Cincinnati and started working at the Cotton Club. I'm very fortunate. I have worked a lot in Cincinnati, but some of my friends, good jazz musicians, have trouble holding a job, getting a gig. A lot of them have just given up the idea of playing music because they can't work. And there's no other reason for that than racism. I met my wife. I had a good marriage and a perfect wife for a musician. Sid Nathan, the president of the King Records, had approached me and offered me the job as session drummer for all King artists. So that kept me here. I was there. We was recording somebody when this A&R man, artist and repertoire man, brought in James Brown with their Three Flames, and that was that was a scene there because we had taken a break, and the manager evidently told James Brown, sing the song, sing the song. So they started singing, please, 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 you know. One of his big hits. And the president of the company, Sid Nathan, was on the board in the engineer room. And he said, "What is that? Cut that noise out. What is that?" So the manager of the group said, "That's James Brown. This is the tune I want you to hear. We're going to," excuse my language. I hate to use languages like this, but Sid Nathan said, "It sounds like a piece of shit." And so I'm not making this up. I hate to say it, but that's what he said. And as you know, what happened? James Brown changed the sound of R&B or whatever you want to call it, you know, because that was his huge hit.
I started at the Post in 1974, December of 74, and 33 years. And it was the greatest job in the world. It really was. I worked there for 33 years, and I accomplished almost everything that I wanted to accomplish. I truly did. I have to say that. The only thing that I didn't do that I really wanted to do, I wanted the Post to send me to Brazil on their nickel. I didn't quite get that accomplished, but the rest of it, I did it. I did it. Well, I made a decision. And part of this is because of my friend Jimmy Bolden, because we would talk, and he would talk about photography as art. And I would say, I'm not an artist, I'm a newspaper photographer. Because that, to me, was what I wanted to be, was a newspaper photographer. He would say, well, so I've sort of made a transition now into the art world. And I've had, a number of exhibits. Most recently, we had what we call an encore of my White People, a retrospective show that a lot of people show up to see. And so I've been able to combine the two passions of my life together, jazz and photography. Charlie Wilson is a throwback to the jazz musician as one who has this distinctive personality.
My name is Charles Wilson. I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. When I was coming up, all of a sudden, I looked around and there was a piano in the house. And my mother had started, playing piano. And so had that piano not been in the house, I don't think I'd be playing the piano today. I went out to the Conservatory of Music. That's when the Conservatory of Music was on Highland Avenue. I went out there and auditioned, to be a student, because I was in the service. See? And by being in the, not service then, but I was in the service hitherto. And then when I went out there, I was going to get it on the GI Bill, which was all right. Only thing about it is when they auditioned me, they said, "You about to know playing this one." They playing scales, they play the scales. I was playing the scales with one finger, So they said, "Hey man, go back to jazz." No, I didn't make it there. I just tell the truth. So that kind of got me thinking, well, maybe music ain't all about A, B, C, but it could be about D, E, F, G, H, I, different things you can imply. It don't always have to be right on the button. My impulsive drive to even think in terms of trying to play. Like I said, I tried to quit several times and people inspired me. My mother inspired me. That kind of inspired me towards not free jazz, but just freedom within the spirit of jazz.
Carolyn Wallace has produced a series called It's Commonly Jazz. This will be the 31st year she's done that. And by profession, she's a caterer. But she's done this, it used to be at Swifton Commons, and then it's since moved for the last few years to Eden Park.
I've been doing this for 31 years. Boy, I can't believe how time flies when you're having fun. It's Commonly Jazz started at one of the city's first shopping centers, Swifton Commons Mall in Bond Hill. It started off as a promotional event in the mall for summer concerts that was combined with barbershop quartet, R&B, reggae, and we found our biggest audience was the jazz audience. There have been some jazz legends, people like Clark Terry, McCoy Tyner, Cindy Blackman, Carl Allen, but we've had some great, great local artists that we've been able to highlight and go on. I always love to tell the story of William Mennefield, because William Mennefield was 12 years old and he came into my office and asked me if I thought that one day I could let him be on the It's Commonly Jazz lineup. And I can tell you that William has opened at least 3 of It's Commonly Jazz concert series. This is a jazz crowd. They come to hear the music. So that while you're socializing, they want folks not talking. They want folks listening. And I think that that's what's pretty special about this event. Because you can go to some events and it's just a social hour and the music becomes the background, but not at It's Commonly Jazz. Then it's just, I love the music. love listening to good, and I found that I learned to listen to the music different too from when I first started off, because jazz does have that thing where you kind of focus in on the different instruments and how they come together. They understand the rhythm and the flow of the music, and that's sort of where I'm at now, is when I listen to the music.
Snooky Gibson, Donald Snooky Gibson, who was a barber. And he was a barber in Avondale up on Reading Road. Snooky has since passed away, but he kept a little keyboard in his barber shop that he would play, and his instrument was a tenor saxophone. And he's yet another accomplished musician, but nobody knew about him. I did a Google search, and you just almost couldn't find anything out about these guys. To me, that's a tragedy, because they are such, in my opinion, great artists. I mean, they're so good at what they do, and nobody knows about them.
It's a crying shame what you go through now. It's a crying shame the way people do now, but you can cry all your life. Every day and every night, it's a shame what you go through now. And when your love is gone, ain't that a shame now? And in your heart, there's a song so full of pain now, but you can cry all your life. Every day and every night, it's a shame what you go through now.
The best thing to me about jazz is this. If I'm listening to one of my records in my collection, the really good ones, it's like hearing it for the first time. If I've heard it for the 1,000th time, it's just something about it. They're like people that you know and love, and you haven't seen them for a while. But when you see them, you feel better. When I hear jazz, I just feel better. On a local level, the best thing about jazz is if I walk into the club and the instruments are already on stage, the drums are set up, the bass is laying there on its side, the piano's there, you can see the horns sitting in their respective holders, and the musicians come on stage and they pick those instruments up. And the really good ones, somebody will count it off. They say, they may, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they start playing. This is something about it.